2, 1. Hello YouTube, Otaku here. I'm going to be your personal narrator. We're going to be getting back into page 101, The Grapes of Wrath. If you haven't been onto this channel before, go ahead and go to the channel description to get a better idea of what this channel is for. If you haven't been onto this channel before, go ahead and grab your eucalyptus inhalation equipment. This is not a cigarette, this is a one-hitter. Clink, clink, clink. Oh, that sounds weird. There we go. Do as I say, not as I do. I am currently out of water, so make sure you have water on standby. They had got $18 for every movable thing from the farm. The horses, the wagon, the implements, and all the furniture for the house. $18. They had a sale. The buyer argued, but they had routed when his interest seemed to flag, and he had told them he didn't want the stuff at any price. Then they were beaten, believed him, and took $2 less than he had first offered. And now they were wary and frightened because they had gone against a system they did not understand, and they had beaten them. They knew the team and the wagons were worth much more. They knew the buyer man would give much more, but they didn't know how to do it. Merchandising was a secret to them. Al, his eyes darting from road to panel board, said, "That fella, he ain't a local fella. Didn't talk like a local fella. Clothes was different, too." And Paul explained, "Well, I heard that the hardware store, I talked to some of the men I knew. They said this fella's coming in just to buy up the stuff us fellas gotta sell when we get out. They say these new fellas is cleaning up, but there ain't nothing we can do about it. Maybe Thomas should have went. Maybe he could have done better." Uncle John said, "But that fella didn't take it all. We couldn't hide it. We couldn't haul it back. These men I know told about that," said Paul. "Says the buyer fella always done that. Scared folks that way. We just don't know how to go about stuff like that. Ma's gonna be disappointed. She'll be mad and disappointed." Al said, "What you think we're gonna go, Paul? ? "I don't know. We'll talk her over tonight and decide. I'm sure glad Tom's back. That makes me feel good. Tom's a good boy." Al said, "Paul, Some fellas was talking about Tom, and they said he's paroled. They said that means he can't go outside the state. Or if he goes, they'll catch him. They'll send him back for 3 years. Paul looked startled. They said that? Question mark. Seems like fellas they knowed. Question mark. Not just blowing steam off. I don't know, said I. They was just talking theirs, and then I didn't let it on he was my brother. He just stood and took it in. Paul said, Jesus Christ. Hope that ain't true! Exclamation point. We need Tom. I'll ask him about it. We got trouble enough without them chasing us hell out. Them chasing the hell out of us. Page 102. I hope it ain't true. We gotta talk that out in the open. Uncle John said, Tom, he'll know. They fell silent while the truck battered along. The engine was noisy, full of little clashings and the brake rods banged. There was a wooden creaking from the wheels, and then a thin jet of steam escaped through a hole at the top of the radiator cap. The truck pulled a high whirling column of red dust behind it. They rumbled up the last little rows while the sun was still half-faced above the horizon. My bad, viewer. I just woke up before work and was like, hey, you gotta read something. It may not be the ending of this book, but I have to read something. And here I am, doing exactly what I intended to do. Though it may not go on for as long as I wanted to. I'm so grateful to get to do at all. Was noisy, full of little clashing and the brake rod banged. There was a wooden creaking from the wheels, and a thin jet of steam escaped through the hole at the top of the radiator cap. The truck pulled a high whirling column of red dust behind it, rumbling up the little rise while the sun was still half-faced above the horizon. They bore down on the house as it disappeared. The brakes squealed while they stopped, and the sound printed in Al's head. No lining left. Ruthie and Minefield climbed, yelling over the sidewalls and dropped into the ground. They shouted, "Where is he? Question mark. Where's Tom?" And then they saw him standing beside the door, and they stopped, embarrassed, and walked slowly towards him and looked shyly at him. And when he said, "Hello, how are you kids doing?" Question mark. They replied softly, "Hello, all right." And they stood apart and watched him, secretly, the great brother who had killed a man and been in prison. They remembered how they played prison in the chicken coop and fought for the right to be prisoner. Connie Rivers lifted the high-tailed gate out of the truck and got down and helped Rosa Sharon to the ground. And she accepted it nobly, smiling her wise, self-satisfied smile, mouth ripped at the corners of a little fatterously. Tom said, "Why, Rosa Sharon, I didn't think I was coming. I didn't think you was coming with them. We was walking, she said. The truck came by and picked us up. And then she said, this is Connie, my husband. And she was grand saying it. The two shook hands, sizing each other up, looking deeply into the other, and then a moment each was satisfied. And Tom says, well, I seen you been busy. She looked down. You did not see. Not yet. Mom told me. When's it gonna be due? Oh, not for a long time. Not till next winter. Tom laughed. Gonna get him born in an orange range, huh? One of them white houses with orange trees all around. Rosa Sharon felt her stomach with both hands. You did not see, she said. She smiled her complacent smile and went into the house. The evening was hot, and the thrust of light was still flowing up in the western horizon. And without any signal, the family gathered by the truck. The Congress, the family government went on to session. Smoke super quick. We ain't got all the time in the world, so it's best to make the most of the present. The film of the evening night. There we are. The film of the evening light made the red earth loosened, so that its dimensions were deepened. So that a stone, a post, a building had a greater depth and more solidarity. More solidarity than the daytime light. And these objects were curiously more individual. A post was more essential a post, set off from the earth it stood in, and the field of corn it stood out against. And the plants were individuals. Not the mass of crops, and the ragged willow tree was itself, standing free of all other willow trees. The earth contributed a light to the evening. The front of the gray, painless house, facing the west, was luminous as the moon is. The great dusty trunk in the yard before the door stood out magically in the light, in the outdrawn perspective of a stereopticon. Yeah? I remember looking at what a stereopticon is. It's basically this machine that sits there and takes like two different pictures, or takes two different dimensions of something and is able to project it out into like a 3D figure in some way. Something along the lines of like placing it on the wall with light. Whatever it was, honestly, after looking it up and seeing it, I was interested in having something like that. So that was pretty interesting. Look it up yourself. You'd also like to find out. The people, too, were changed in the evening. Quiet. They seemed to be part of an organization of the unconscious. They obeyed impulses which registered only faintly in their thinking minds. Their eyes were inward and quiet, and their eyes too were loosened in the light, loosened in dusty faces. The family met in the most important place, near of the truck. The house was dead, and the fields were dead, but this truck was the active thing, the living principle, the ancient Hudson, with abandoned scarred radiator screens, with grease and dusty globules as the worn edges of every moving parts, with hubcaps gone and caps of red dust in their places. This was the new heart, the living center of the family, half passenger car and half truck, high-sided and clumsy. Paul walked around the truck, looking at it, and then he squatted down on the dust and found a stick to draw with. One foot was on the ground. The other rested on the ball and slightly back so that one knee was higher than the other. Left forearm rested on the lower left knee, and the right elbow on the right knee, and the right fist cupped from the chin. Paul squatted there, looking at the truck, his chin in his cupped fist, and Uncle John moved towards him and squatted down beside him. Their eyes were rotting. Grandpa came out of the house and saw the two squatting together, and he jerked over and sat on the running board of the truck. Facing them, he was the nucleus. Tom and Connie and Noah strolled in and squatted, but the line was half circled with Grandpa in the opening. I may not have turned this down properly. Let me go ahead and fix that super quick. Yeah. Put out a safe level of beat. Strolled in and squatted, and the line of half circles with Grandpa in the opening, so that Ma came out of the house that Grandma was with her, and Rosa Sharon behind. Walking daintily, they took their places behind the squatting man. They stood up and put their hands on their hips, and the children, Ruthie and Winefield, hopped from foot to foot beside the women. Children sprigged their toes in the red dust, but they made no sound. Only the preacher was not there. He, out of decency, was sitting on the ground behind the house. He was a good preacher and knew his people. Poor Casey. We're at page 104, making proper headway. The evening light grew softer, and for a while the family sat and stood silently. Then Paul, speaking to no one, but in a group, made his report. Got skinned on the stuff we sold. The fella knew we couldn't wait. Got $18 only. Ma stirred restively, but she held her peace. Noah, the oldest son, asked, "How much?" "Add all it up, we got?" Question mark. I made Noah sound weird on purpose, because apparently he's a little touched. Paul drew figures in the dust and mumbled to himself for a moment. 154, he said. But Al here said we're gonna need better tires. Says their here won't last. This was Al's first participation in the conference. Always he had stood behind with the women before, and now he made his report solemnly. "She's old and ornery," he said gravely. "I gave a whole thing and a good going over before we bought her. Didn't listen to the fella talking what the hell of a bargain she was. Stuck my finger in the differentials and wasn't no sawdust. Opened the gearbox and there wasn't no sawdust. Test her clutch and rolled her wheels for line. Went under her and her frame ain't sprayed none. We never been rolled. She never been rolled. Seen there was cracked cell in her battery and made the fella put in a good one. The tires ain't worth a damn. But there's a good size. Easy to get. She'll ride like a half calf, but she ain't shooting no oil. The reason I say buy her is that she was a popular car. Wrecked yards are full of Hudsons, Super 6s, and you could buy parts cheap. Could have got a bigger, fancier car for the same money, but parts too hard to get, and 100 deer. And 2 deer. That's how I figured her anyways." The last was his submission to the family. He stopped speaking and waited for their opinions. Grandpa was still the titular head, but he no longer ruled. His position was honorary and a matter of custom, but he did have the right to first comment, no matter how silly his old mind might be. The squatting man and the standing woman waited for him. "You're all right, Al," Grandpa said. "I was a squirt just like you. I fought around like a dog wolf. When there was a job, I done it. Grown up good." He finished with a tone of benediction, and Al read it a little with pleasure. Pa said, "Sounds right side up to me. If it was horses, we would have had to put the blame on Al. But Al's the only automobile fella here." Tom said, "I know some. Worked some in McAllister. All right, Al, right? He done good." And now Al was rosy with the compliments. Tom went on, "I'd like to say, well, that preacher, he wants to go along." He was silent. The words laid on the group, and the group was silent. "He's a nice fella," Tom added. "You known him a long time. Talked a little while sometimes, but he talks sense. He talks sensible." And he relinquished the proposal to the family. The light was going gradually. Ma left the group and went into the house. The iron clang of the stove came from the house. In a moment she walked back from the brooding council. Grandpa said, "There was 2 ways of thinking. Some folks used to figure that's a preacher was poison luck." Tom said, "That fella says he ain't a preacher no more." Grandpa waved his hand back and forth. "Once a fella a preacher, he's always a preacher. That's something you just can't shake off. There was some fellow figuring it was a good, respectful thing to have a preacher along. There was somebody died, preacher buried. When it comes due, or overdue, there's your preacher. Baby comes, and you got a Christianer right there under the roof. Me, I always said there was preachers and preachers, gotta pick 'em. Kinda like this fella. He ain't stiff." Paul dug his stick into the dirt and rolled it between his fingers so that it bored a little hole. Page 106. "There's more to this than he's luckier, that he's a nice fella," Paul said. "We gotta figure close. It's a sad thing to figure close. Let's see now. There's Grandpa and Grandma. That's 2. Me and John and Ma. That's 5. And Noah and Tommy and Al. That's 8. Rosa, Sharon, and Connie. That's 10. Ruthie and Whitefield. That's 12. Gotta take the dog, so what else to do? Can't shoot a good dog. There ain't nobody to give 'em to. That's 14. Not counting the chickens is left with 2 pigs, said Noah. Paul said, I aim to get them pigs salted down and eaten all the way. We're gonna need meat. Carry the salt cakes right with us. Well, I'm wondering if we could all ride in the preacher too. And kinda we feed an extra month, or an extra mouth. Without turning his head, he asked, Can we, Ma? Ma cleared her throat. I can't even clear my throat. Shoot. This is what it like. Okay. Weird. Okay. Almost there. Ma cleared her throat. It ain't can we, it's will we, she said firmly. As far as can, we can't do nothing, not go to California or nothing, but as far as will, why, we'll do what we will, and as far as will, it's a long time our folks have been here in the East before. I never heard tell no jolt or no hazardlets, neither. Ever refusing food and shelter or a lift on the road to nobody they asked. They've been mean jolts, but never that mean. Paul broke in. But suppose there's just ain't room? ? He was twisting his neck to look up at her, and he was ashamed. His tone was making him ashamed. Suppose we just can't get all in the truck. There ain't room now, she said. There ain't room for more'n 6, and 12s are going sure. One more ain't gonna hurt, and ain't a man, strong and healthy, ain't never no burden. Ain't a time when we got 2 pigs and over $200, and we was wondering what kind of feed a fella. She stepped, and Paul turned back, and his spirit was raw from the whipping. Grandma said, A preacher's a nice thing to be with us. He gave a nice grace this morning. Paul looked at the faces of each one for distinct, and then he said, I'm going to call him over. Tommy. If he's again, he ought to be here. Tom got up from the hams and went towards the house, calling, Casey. Oh, Casey. Tom called out. A muffled voice replied from behind the house. Tom walked towards the corner and saw the preacher. We were back against the wall, looking at the flashing evening star in the light sky. Calling me? Casey asked. Yeah. We was thinking we were all going with us. You ought to be over with us, helping us figure things out if you're coming. Yeah? We think as long as you're with us, you ought to be over with us, helping us figure things out. Casey got to his feet. He knew the government of families, and he knew he had been taken into the family. Indeed, the position was imminent, for Uncle John moved sideways, leaving space between Paul and himself for the preacher. Casey squatted down like the others facing Grandpa, enthroned over on the running board. Ma went on to the house again. There was a screech of lantern hood and yellow light flashing up in the dark kitchen. When she lifted the lid of the big pot, the smell of boiling side meat and beet greens came out of the door. They waited for her to come back across the darkening yard, for Ma was powerful in the group. Paul said, We gotta figure when to start. Sooner the better. What we gotta do before we go and get them pigs slaughtered and salted and packed up and stuff to go. Quicker the better now. Noah agreed. If we pitch in, we can get ready tomorrow, and we can go bright the next day. Uncle John objected. Can't chill no meat in the heat of the day. Wrong time of year for slaughtering. Meat'll go soft, and if it don't chill, we'll let her tonight. We'll let her get done tonight. She'll chill tonight's sun. much as they're going. After we eat, let's get her done. Got salt? Question mark. Ma said, yes. Yeah, plenty of salt. Got 2 nice cakes too. Well, let's get her done then. Huh? Well, let's get her done then, said Tom. Grandpa began to scramble about, trying to get a purchase to rise. Getting dark, he said. I'm getting hungry. Come time we get to California, I have a big bunch of grapes in my hand. All the time of nibbling, all the time by God. He got up and the men arose. Ruthie and Winefield hopped excitedly onto the dust. Like crazy things, Ruthie whispered harshly to Winefield. Killing pigs and going to California? Killing pigs and all at the same time? And Winefield was reduced to madness. He stuck his fingers against his throat, made a horrible face, and wobbled about, weakly shrilling. I'm an old pig. Look, I'm an old pig. Look at all the blood. Ruthie. And he staggered and sank to the ground and waved arms and legs weakly. Page 108. But Ruthie was older, and she knew the tremendousness of the time. And going to California, she said again. She knew this was the great time in her life so far. The adults moved towards the lighted kitchen through the deep dusk, and Ma served them greens and side meat in the tin plates. Honestly, page 108 to page 112 should be the final video. And I should be able to make that ending slightly more. I'll make that ending and my thoughts. And with that, page 108 at the top. Grapes of Wrath is almost finished. I promise that 112 is where it officially starts. Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. I'm not going to smoke again. I'm just going to appreciate this time. Oh, I'm still alive. Oh my God. There'll be a point in my life where I'm not going to be alive no more. That thought frightens me. Not so much frightens the uncertainty of what that is becoming is. It's not meant to. If you want to go down that route, sure. Millions of people and insects and animals all go their whole lives without trying to understand it. There's some people that meditate and find a certain peace within themselves that when you're at that level of Zen, you might as well just not even have a body. And to that body, that's basically death to it. When you're in that state, you might as well be where you go when you die, because that body's no longer here. Alright, it's time to go. Thank you very much. Peace, y'all. Peace.